Hey everyone, welcome to Ask Shane B. I'm Jeremy Jaquia here with Shane Barnard from Shane and Shane. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about stage presence with your worship band. Postures, faces, expressions, all of that.
Come on.
Got a really good question from Stefan. He says, "Hello, Shane B. My question involves stage presence for our team. I have watched from the congregation and even noticed when on stage with our team that sometimes their faces and expressions do not seem to match what we are singing. It comes across as uninterested or going through the motions, but when talking to them about the songs during practice, they seem to have the right hearts, attitude, and focus. I don't want their smiles or expressions to be fake either, but I can't help but think if they were focused on who we are singing to, it would somehow show on their face more. How would you encourage them to not be afraid to express themselves while knowing that we may all have different postures of worship? Thank you, Stefan."
Woo!
Hey, good luck, man.
I can feel the
Sit over here.
anticipation. All right. So, man, a couple things come to my mind, and just so you know, we read this question and just talked about it amongst ourselves, right here in our little circle, and just know we're on this process with you. I mean, we're right there in the middle of it. We're in the thick of it, right there with you. We've had a similar conversation within the last few months at our church, and consistently do. And so, a couple things that come to mind, even just now when you read that, as far as like if we could go 30,000 foot view and then start working our way down. I think it's super helpful, which this starts, from the leadership of the church down, that we look at what worship is in a New Testament light. And so, and that's that might be 50,000 feet, when it comes to this question of, like, for example, we've decided at our church to keep the worship center off of the worship center.
No longer call it the worship center. Yeah.
So that because words matter. So we're not being confusing of this is where you come to do this. And so it might be helpful to have some conversations on what it's supposed to look like on your face through your members of your body to lead worship in your congregation. Because the better question is, how are you confessing sin? How are you loving your wife? How are you not doing those things? How are you sharing Jesus with the lost? And how are you feeding your soul? How are you feeding your flesh? How are you feeding your neighbor? I mean, this is just questions. That's a better maybe diagnostic from a 50,000 foot view of like how electric guitar player are you leading worship in this body? First of all, just to start there.
Outside of music.
Of music.
Yeah.
I think it would be wrong of us to go, our guys aren't they're not being expressive in their leading worship. Well, that's the wrong way to say that, because leading worship in a New Testament sense does not look like getting on a stage and playing the electric guitar. We're just not going to find it. And so anyway, that matters. And but I know what you're asking, and we have the same discussions, and we bring in some things with our team that I heard you say of your guys are guys and gals, whoever are serving with you, they seem like they have the right heart, but on the stage, their faces aren't saying that they have the right heart, and one of the things, again, in our church that we make sure of is that everyone who's serving on whatever instrument is in biblical community. And that's just, in order to serve on our teams, that we just want to make sure you're taken care of. And that's not going to land on me. It's going to land on your community group to walk alongside of you. And if you're struggling with your community, just gospel community of coming to each other and not forsaking gathering together, praying together, confessing sin, holding each other accountable, studying scripture together, all those kinds of things that we do if we're interested in being a believer today, a worship leader today, we're making sure that those things are happening. And so I can, a lot of our guys don't have that kind of face that I'm looking for. But I know them, and I know where they're at. We call it around here. We call it the stink face. So often we're like really enjoying what we're doing, and it creates this. Come on, Ross.
Ross has got a very good.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like, I don't know.
Face.
It just makes you, It's like, and I understand that feeling. It's like my brother is going to work, and when he goes to work, to the best of his ability, his face just looks like that, And
Which
so
there's the difference between the power frown of it feels so good that I can't help but make this face. And looking totally uninterested in what you're doing.
So,
right?
So at the same time of knowing that, for me, of going, the last thing I want you to do is tell you that you're modeling, that you are the model of New Testament worship to our people, and so you need to do something that is inauthentic. In that moment, or that's taking your focus on what your role is. And at the same time, telling them that it is going to matter. We talked about this just a minute ago. It is going to matter that when you're playing a song about the amazing grace of God, which many of them are, and it looks like you don't care about that amazing grace, or that doesn't have any impact on you, that is saying something. And so, bro, I know you. And so this is where the conversation, I think, can be healthy. I get it. Like, I understand. And this is in the case that I know that this brother is prepared. I know that this brother is ready to go. It's just like he is stank face, Stankerton, and that's just, and I just want to let him know that face matters, in that people are looking at him and going, how do I, when I'm singing this lyric, I don't think people they don't know what I know, so they don't know that this person playing the bass or the drums, they don't know about the whole, this is great. I want to feel like the beauty in rhythm, the beauty, and all they know is they're going, in Christ alone. They're going, when I sing a lyric, this guy's up there. What am I supposed to do? And man, I think one of the things that we do is just go to the scripture and say, well, what do we do? And it does talk about postures, which I think that'd be a different Ask Shane B or a different Worship Initiative podcast when we talk about biblical postures. Because oftentimes I'm quoting those passages of going, hey, I didn't write the book. Here we go. Because your love, steadfast love, is better than life. My lips will praise you, and I will bless you as long as I live. And in your name, I will lift my hands. And that seemed like it was in the presence of the congregation a couple verses before that. And so, and I just go to those scriptures. It's like, man, this is what he says. This is a grace. This is not heavy. This is a light thing. This is a grace that we do that. And we go to the scriptures. But in this case, our brother, what's his name?
Stephen
is just asking, man, my guys just aren't looking like they want to be there. And so I think it's helpful if you know in where they're at in their walk, more so than just, at rehearsal they kind of seem like they're kind of into it.
Right.
More so than that. So I would say go a step further there and make sure they're taken care of, which, that may take a lot of work to go, man, I come to find out he wasn't. Mm-hmm. Okay. That he is neck deep in pornography and feels like a hypocrite. And so that's why his stank face is stanky, because he doesn't want to be there, and he's having a really tough time. He doesn't even want to think about the lyric, because if he thinks about the lyric, it exposes his heart and makes him feel guilty. And so how do I pastor and shepherd him in those moments? And so if you have a healthy brother, like we were having some conversation here, Adam on staff here is like, man, a lot of times he's doing those things in faith. Like he's leading with posture and faith, going, these are the postures God's given me. I've prepared enough, so I'm not just thinking about, here's a chord sheet, I'm looking at the thing, which that's a whole other thing. That's probably one of the biggest reasons why people are head nose down looking at the thing, because they just aren't prepared.
Right.
So he's prepared enough to free himself up. I got this musically, I got it. And so he has some space in his mind to think about these lyrics. And he's going, by faith, I'm going to lift my hands in moments that I have an off down chorus or whatever, because these are the ways that God's given me. My heart even maybe may not even be there yet, but I'm going to change my mind and hope that God changes my heart in time, and just lead like that, because this is what he said. And so I think being prepared. So if you're struggling with this, like maybe before that is just, man, know your people. Know your band, because you never know what's going on, and create that culture of being fully known. And that's just a big step for us, man, in worship ministry, is lots of times you're going to go there and nobody's going to confess until you do. And so I would say, Stefan, that you coming to your folks and just confessing your sin and asking for their forgiveness, knowing that you have God's forgiveness through the cross of Jesus, and just that healing, that James healing that comes when we confess our sin to one another and pray for one another and pray for each other, so that you would be healed. When you create that culture, it's easy to have these conversations. It's not awkward for me to have the conversation of what your face looks like. If I don't remember having that one yet. But if I have to have it, I don't feel like I would have a hard time having it, because It's like, I know you guys. If I was in your shoes, I think I would have the same exact face, because you guys are thinking about, the couple of our guys, they're thinking about, man, I have 5 different patches in this song. I'm thinking about timing. A lot of times I'm calling out sections, and I love to play on time. I love it. And the way that their face communicates that is not necessarily wrapped in, his body coming back to breathe. It may not look like that moment, because he's honestly not thinking about that lyric. He's thinking about supporting that lyric the best he can. And it wouldn't be hard for me to go, dude, I love your stank face. And in the studio, it's, please put that stank face back on. But when we're in front of folks and we're up here on a stage, just know that people are looking to you. And, and I know you're prepared. I know you're there, but just know that that's happening. And one of the things we've chosen to do early on, 7 years ago, when we came to our church here at Watermark, is take our ugly mugs off the massive screens. And so it makes, only because it was like I did a personal little poll of like, is this helpful? So let's get a good solid poll. So if I'm singing this lyric and this person, or maybe a close-up of a guitar, or a close-up or a cool pan shot, is this helpful if you're singing this lyric? And I think the general response was, for our congregation, was that is not helpful. And in fact, we go a lot of places where the people on the stage are actually bigger than they are on the screen, which I'm always kind of a little confused by. If you're bigger on the stage than the screen, like literally bigger, then what's going? Right. It's just kind of like a lot of movement and a lot of things going on. I'm a real distracted person, which you guys can probably tell from this podcast. But of just asking yourself the question, how can I serve my body? And so when we come together and sing, may the word of Christ dwell richly in us as we teach and admonish one another. So that does feel like when you're teaching and admonishing one another, there is a certain degree of responsibility there. In all wisdom, through singing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs with gratefulness in our hearts to God. It's also, Ephesians 5, don't be filled with wine, but be filled by the Spirit of God. He's teaching us different ways of how to walk in wisdom and to be filled by the Spirit. Well, that's what we do, is we sing. And there's not a lot of and as far as New Testament worship, there's not a lot of, when you play the lyre, do this. And so we're going, okay, we want to model. So what we're trying to do is sing together. And how do we come around that and empower people to sing? Because if we're not doing that, then man, let's do that. That's what we're asked to do in these particular places in the New Testament. Colossians 3, Ephesians 5, these places where it gives us some instruction on how to do that. And not that we can obviously take the Old Testament Psalm instruction and all the postures and do another podcast about that. But just having those authentic conversations with every player of, man, how do we serve our people? And so you have any thoughts?
I mean, I would really probably end up just echoing everything you have hit on. I think the big overarching thing here is this is an opportunity for anyone navigating this to shepherd your team and to engage with your team and to really make sure you do know to where you can take they seem to have the right heart. You can take the seem to out of it and just know where these people stand, where these people are. And that, again, that opens up the door for these conversations to happen in a way that is natural and not awkward, because you can say, I know that you are walking with Christ, that you are living in the light, you are not in isolation. I know that you believe these things, that these things have changed your life. And so I'm going to ask you to search your heart and figure out and process with me why maybe you think you've got, even if it's really practical, why do you think you have a face that looks like, because again, the stank face is different from the disinterested, indifferent face. Yeah. And so let's talk practically. Why do you think you have a face, your facial expression is really just sad or disinterested? Yep. Let's talk about that, because I know these things are true. And so totally, I think that's the biggest piece of all of this.
Yeah. And I think something that was in this message was, how would you encourage them not to be afraid to express themselves? And that's just another thing to point out. They may not be afraid. They may just be going to work in the best way they know how. And I would also say something that would really serve you is video. Of that covers a multitude of conversation, mm-hmm. of just hey, look at this video with me, and just imagine yourself. Yep. You're coming in as a visitor. You see a lyric. This is what the lyric is saying. Just imagine with me. And that is the same is true with critiquing how you're playing and how you're doing. I mean, that's what we do. Mm-hmm. Is here's the video and the audio. And especially if we bring it into the studio and put it to a grid and line it up with a click track, it's here's your part. And it's helpful. Now, I mean, sure. I love you, yep. And I just want you to see it from. A lot of times as a worship leader, you don't get to see it, so you're hearing this from other people. Totally. And so you're going now. You get to look at it and say, yeah, no, I don't agree. I think he's got a very, very determined, very purposeful face. It may not look like, this email that I got, or it's man, you are right. Oh my goodness, right. Let's get together and just have really good, healthy conversation. If nothing else, maybe this spurs you on to just dig into the lives of your team and just have that sweet privilege of walking together with Jesus.
And that's the same along the lines of not wanting them to be fake and not wanting them to just shine it on. I mean, all of this stuff leads into those conversations where you're able to say, I don't want you to fake something for the sake of, appeasing me. Yep. But there is maybe, like we discussed earlier, there might be something to, I need you to in faith, even if in that moment you don't feel this natural, joyful, whatever, let's at least just dig into this and have the conversation about it.
And I never feel that when I'm leading. I'm never feeling it. I pray because I am absolutely desperate. I'm the least disciplined person that I know, and I sing because I have to, and I sing mostly because I don't feel it, in hopes that God, by His Spirit, would help me believe it in a way that my life is transformed. And so God saved me from much. And so I have a huge reason to sing, regardless of how I feel in that moment. Most of the time, I don't feel like singing, especially like a woman, like I do. It's painful in my in-ears. It's just I just want to run from myself, and I don't.
I think it sounds okay.
I don't feel like it. I know that when I sing those words to Him. Granted, I'm singing, which one of the things we've been doing, by the way, side bit, as I say this, is putting microphones in front of our players. And that's been a really helpful thing. And two of the microphones are not on in the house, but they are on in the in-ear, in the monitors, so that it's easier to communicate with each other. And just having a microphone has been helpful to go, man, I have a microphone. I'm going to engage. It's like I'm going to be a part of engaging and singing lyrics as well as play the keyboard. And so I think, man, just digging in and reminding each other of the sweet truths of what we've been saved from and all of those things, and getting into the lives of your folks and getting into it together is just, man, it's going to be messy, but it's going to be so beautiful. And so jump in, brother. Love you. Thanks for your question.
It's good. Stefan, I hope that's helpful. I hope that's helpful to all y'all listening and watching as we just pursue playing these roles with excellence and in a way that makes much of God and blesses the church. And keep sending us your questions. You can send them to askshane@worshipinitiative.com, and we'll continue to get into them. We hope this is a blessing to y'all. We love you. We're praying for you. We'll see you next time.